Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Erin, and as you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, I am doing my finale of my No Pan Left Behind challenge for 2023. I started tracking this project around March, so I did lose out on a little bit of progress, or at least tracking on my progress, but mainly at the beginning of the year, I thought to myself, I need to make sure that I am touching every single eyeshadow in my collection. Since I do have a larger collection of eyeshadow palettes and eyeshadow products, I wanted to be mindful of not letting any of them not get used. I also wanted to be mindful of going through my collection, so if anything was expired, not performing correctly, like I didn't like the color story, I didn't like the formula, like I could let those go out of my collection. I have posted a couple other updates and intros to this challenge slash project, and so I will make sure to have them linked up in the eye and also linked down below. But what I'm looking at the end of the year as far as palettes, which I did film and post my end of year inventory that went up on Christmas Day. So if you guys missed it, I will make sure to link it up and down. If you want to see every single palette in my collection, make sure to check out that video. But I am ending the year with 67 eyeshadow products. So that is either full palettes, or if I have like a potted single, then those are considered in my eyeshadow products. Now for pans, I do have a total of 739 pans of eyeshadow. That did fluctuate throughout the year. I did declutter some palettes this year, and also I believe I brought in 11 palettes. Be on the lookout for a ranking. I'm going to do, ranking my palettes that I tried in 2023. So be on the lookout for that video after the first of the year. But without a whole lot of rambling, let me go ahead because I have quite a few palettes to go through. I did scoot over a little bit so I can put my graphics up here on the screen for you guys, but I'll go ahead and I'll start with the palette that is currently on my eyes, and that is the Oden's Eye Merry Christmas palette. I did pick this one up this year when they did their restock. I have saved the sleeves for Oden's Eye because they're just so beautiful with their design and packaging. But of course, the palette looks like the sleeve, and then this is the color story on the inside. Of course, you guys can see I'm wearing that bright red. I did use the black, the gold over here, and then this shimmer right here called Little Star. That is what I used, and I used a little bit of gingerbread to kind of blend everything out, but that is my eye look today. Now, I did end up hitting every single pan on this palette, so this palette is officially checked off my list, but these 4 shades that are on my eyes were the shades that were left for me to use, and so of course I kind of made them work for a look, and I'm feeling very like Black Swan today with that like black wing coming off. I used the like eye tape to get that really crisp line, but I'm feeling sassy today, and that is okay. I can do my other Oden's Eye palette as well, and that is the Trick or Treat palette, which was a collaboration with Angelica Niequist. And again, I kept the sleeve because the packaging and the artwork is just stunning. So this is the inside of this. And I did a palette bingo with this, so I will link that up in the eye. I've only done a couple get ready with me, so if I have coordinating videos with these palettes, I'll make sure to link them so you guys can see these in action. But I did do a palette bingo. I am so impressed with this. This is actually a palette that I am like constantly thinking of. Like I want to reach back into it, even though I have hit my goal on it. I want to reach for it. And so that is just saying something about the formula. The color story is just something that I can't take my mind off of. The only shade that I don't like in this palette is this one right here, which is Mummy's Curse. It's a little bit too flaky for my liking, and so that's the only one that I have to work with a little bit. But overall, I love this palette, and I was able to hit my goal. I actually rolled this in for a prompt in my deck of panning, and so I did have to use the shimmers in this palette twice, and so I did get a little bit more familiar with this formula and this palette. I'm going to go through my palettes that are in a smaller basket over here just so I can put them away and not have to worry about them getting knocked over, because I do have 2 sleeping pups in the room with me. And so I am going to go through my Lethal palettes. So let me get these in order in which I have them on my spreadsheet. So first we are looking at the Night Flower palette, and I did have quite a bit of use on this palette rolling into the last quarter of the year, but I was able to go ahead and get use on, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I had 6 more shades in this palette to go, and I was able to use those. I love the Lethal formula. I love purples, and so this was not a chore to use, and that's another one that I am super excited about going back to. Now, the kind of companion palette to that one is the Wildflower palette by Lethal. This is our color story right here, and these are kind of reflective, so I'm trying not to blind you too much with my lights. I actually have my lights turned down quite a bit today, but still things are going to reflect off of very reflective packaging. But of course I will have my graphic popping up. So I did only have, what, 4 shades left in this palette, which 2 of them were the purples, a neutral, and then a blue. I love this palette too. I love how dimensional and shifty Lethal shades can be, and so what you see in the pan is not necessarily what you will see on the eye, and it just is so dimensional and beautiful that this also was not a chore to use. I really want to maybe work on this in the springtime with the Natasha Denona pastel palette and just see if I can kind of like bump up the Natasha Denona shades just a little bit with the amazing shimmers from Lethal. So I have 2 custom made palettes from Lethal, and so this is the palette number 1. I did only have 2 shades in this one to use, and so again, those were not a chore because they're greens. I love greens. You can tell by the color story. I like the burgundies, the greens, like a pop of something fun over here. This is a multi-chrome. So these are beautiful and I love them. I did get those 2 other shades done. And then my last custom palette from Lethal is in this packaging, and this is what this color story looks like. Again, very similar, but this was the palette that I made that was duping the Melt Cosmetic Bad Zodiac Earth palette. I'm an earth sign, not that I look too much into like astrology and stuff like that, but definitely this color story calls to me. So I did have quite a bit of this palette. I only had 3 shades that I had used in March. So I did go ahead and I used the rest of these shades. Again, not a chore, love this formula. I actually went on to the Lethal site to look at shades that I don't have and to see what I might be interested in. So if I play my budget right, I can see myself maybe getting another palette from Lethal in 2024. I only had a few shades left to do in my Urban Decay Naked Heat, and it was the 2 mattes down on this end here. So I was able to get those 2 used. I love this formula. I love this palette, but this palette is very old in my collection, but it is still performing. And I almost feel like if the shimmers stopped performing in this palette, I would still keep it for the mattes because the mattes are that good. So this is wonderful. I do want to get more use out of this next year, so I might roll this in a couple times to get more than 1 use on each shade. Typically when I'm working on a palette that has more shimmers than mattes, I do rotate and kind of use the mattes multiple times. This palette only has, what, 4 shimmers, and that dark one, I don't really use that. I use that more as an outer V. But as far as lid shades, this only has 3, so this one was relatively easy to get use on. I'll go ahead and do some more one-offs before I do the big chunk, like the big brand that I ended up using in the 4th quarter, but I did end up picking up the Cosmic Beauty Gothic palette. This is absolutely gorgeous with this purple color story. Absolutely love it. And so I did end up using these shades in November and December. Obviously, this palette came out in what, October? And so I purchased it in the fourth quarter, so I did get these used up. These are beautiful shades. Love this formula. I am so looking forward to what Cosmic Beauty has coming up in 2024 because I will gladly purchase some more palettes. Another indie brand that I ended up trying this year is Glaminatrix, and this is very reflective packaging as well. But this is the Rich Romantic palette, and this is our color story. Again, very reflective with those shimmery shades in there. But I'll put my graphic up. And again, I did pick up this palette in October, and it took until like the last part of October to reach me here in the US. And so I started working on this palette in November, and you guys can see I had one shade that I used in December. I like this formula. I think the shimmery shades are beautiful. You can get a more subtle look by just tapping them on, or you can go full on metallic, you know, reflective by putting them on with a finger or a wet brush. So I've been impressed with that, but we will see what they come out with in 2024 to see if I want to look to purchase any more palettes from Glaminatrix or if I'm going to move on to try some other indie brands. My next palette is actually in a Z palette, but this is my Depotted So Jaded palette, and I have my Star Wars stickers on there because my mirror broke. But with this one, I had what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I had 6 shades in here that I needed to use in October, and I did get those used. I still love this color story, at least when I took out the shades that I'm not going to use. I love this color story. I love this palette. I do want to reach for it more next year and get some more use out of this because these are just stunning. Absolutely stunning. I don't know if we've seen this type of quality come out of ColourPop in a very long time. So I am very thrilled to have this. I do still have my original packaging, so do not fear. I did keep the original packaging because that is also beautiful. Next palette that I am looking at is the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde, and this again is a beautiful pastel and neutral palette. Oh, goodness, these lights are just on it today. And like I said, I turned my lights way down, but it is just, some of these packagings are just so reflective. So I will have my graphic popping up, of course. And so we had 6 shades that I needed to use, including a lot of those blues on that side. But this is gorgeous with the formula and the shades and the sparkle. This is something that I really did enjoy reaching into. And don't take a drink every time I say that I enjoyed a palette. I think when I'm going through this and I'm enjoying what I'm using, that just shows me that I've been mindful enough about what I'm bringing in that I know the formula is going to be good. I've already gotten rid of things that are not so good. So in my mind, when I am loving everything that I'm using, that is telling me that I'm doing a good job at curating my larger eyeshadow palette collection, but I'm being mindful about curating things that work for me and that I enjoy. So we're gonna move on to the largest category and make sure, did I miss anything? Nope. So Natasha Denona. If you guys had watched any of my like deck of pannings when I rolled some stuff in, or even my last No Pan Left Behind, I think I told you guys that I was saving Natasha Denona for last. I don't know why. I don't know what the mindset was behind that, but definitely I ended up getting through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 of my mid-size palettes. So let's just run through them. First and foremost, and again, this is the reflective packaging, the Sunrise. Yeah, the Sunrise palette. And so this is our color story right here. Love it. This is right up my alley, again, with these warm tones that I just love on my eyes. And as much as the ColourPop warm shades or the burgundy shades like caused an eye reaction. The whatever's in the Natasha Denona formula for her reds and her burgundies, it does not irritate my eyes. So very, very thrilled to get through this one. I do not need to put these on the shelf next to me because if they fall, they will break. And so our next one is the Natasha Denona Love Palette. And this is this color story. Again, pinks, purples, reds, love, love, love. And so I had a few of these shades that I needed to use in November, including the silver shade over here, which is the Blind shade. Absolutely gorgeous. I love tapping that on top of like a red look, and it just makes it look wet and metallic and just gorgeous. Next up, we have the bronze palette, and here is our color story. My bronze palette is starting to make noise too, so I think I've kind of figured out how to fix the squeaking, but I just have to see if I'm brave enough to try to fix it without breaking the palette. So I'll have to fill you guys in if I end up doing that. But this is our color story. Used a lot of this in November and December. And again, I just love these warm tones. I cannot get enough of this. The mattes are beautiful. A lot of the shimmers are very similar, but again, you always get a beautiful look, so I'm not mad about that one. Then we have Glam, which this one is the squeakiest of all of them. I don't get it, but like I said, I want to try to fix the squeakiness of these palettes. This one I had not touched all year, and so I did get my use on this one in November and December. I do like this palette, but it's on the lower end of kind of if I had to rank my Natasha Denona palettes, and it has nothing to do with the formula. It has everything to do with the color story. So that is how I feel about this one, but I was happy to get use out of it, and now let me close it with the squeaky door effect. Next up, we have the Natasha Denona Retro palette, and with this one, I only had I only had 3 shades to use on this one. So I basically ended up doing a burgundy eye look. I may have rolled in an additional shade from another palette to be able to get a full look, but I allowed myself, like this is some sort of like strict ruled kind of project, but I allowed myself, of course, to dip into shades twice. I didn't necessarily record if I was using them twice, mainly because I was just focusing on hitting every single pan in my collection, but this is beautiful. I love this. I wish that this had a little bit more variation. I wish that this one went along with the mini retro. And I know that there's the retro glam, but I think that there's just something that's missing about these two, like the retro and the retro glam, that doesn't hit the mark with the mini retro. And so I was kind of disappointed in the color story of this one, but I still love burgundies and pinks and warm tones, so I was not mad about using that one. Next, we have the Natasha Denona Zendo palette. Same thing, I was kind of disappointed in how they did this one and how it did not necessarily look like the mini Zendo. This one also, I feel like it has a little bit of a downgraded formula to it. There's a couple in here that don't necessarily perform the way I would want them to. And I'm kind of thinking about the cream to powder shades in here. So the brown here, Mindful, the peachy tone, Calm, and also this matte down here, which is Zeal. Those ones, they gave me a little bit of trouble with blending, but I do like this palette. I actually reached into this palette a couple times for the like blues and greens over here, just because I was like looking for that like pop and punch of blue green, and this one hit the mark. So I am glad to have it in my collection. I just feel like some of the mattes and the cream to powders in here are not up to par with some of the other palettes that she has released. Speaking of which, we have the My Dream palette, and the cream to powders in here are just next level. And so this is the color story on this one. This is also kind of my dream color story with the burgundies and the warm tones. And so I do love this palette. I did have this in a deck of panning prompt where I had to use some of the shimmers twice, so I got a little bit more use out of this. I don't really use black a whole lot except for like what I did today with a little bit of a wing, and so the black shade in this palette and the black shade in the Odin's Eye I'm probably not going to get the most use out of, but I do love this palette. I love the soft touch packaging. It doesn't show fingerprints. It is just beautiful. It is so nice to hold and feel. So I do love that palette as well. This one was fun. And so the Natasha Denona Pastel palette, this is our color story. And I did also roll this into a deck of panning prompt where I needed to use the blues and greens twice. And so I did get extra use on those. I was watching a video, I think from It's Just Steph, and she was talking about this palette and how the red in the middle just seems out of place for a pastel palette. And looking at it in my viewfinder and then also looking at it on my graphic, I agree that that red is kind of just like jarring a little bit in this palette, but overall I did really enjoy it. I actually do like the cream to powders in this formula. I think that the lighter tone cream to powders, they blend out really, really nicely and they give good pigmentation. So I didn't mind the cream to powders in this one. And I really did enjoy doing some mint and blue eyeshadow looks. I did a minty blue look in my FabFitFun unboxing for winter, and I really enjoyed that look. So loved using that palette. Again, not my tippity top favorite from Natasha Denona, but I did enjoy that. Next up is the Retro Glam, which I talked about earlier, and here is our color story. Again, I feel like we fell a little bit short on the cream to powders in this, and maybe it's just I don't like the dark cream to powders. To me, they end up being a little bit patchy, and so I know she does the cream to powders for a reason in that certain formula, in these certain shades, but I just don't get along with the dark colors of the cream to powder. So like Evergreen in here, is that the only one? Jazzy has that cream to powder look, but it also has a little bit of shimmer to it. Yeah, that has a little bit of shimmer to it. So that's kind of a satin shade. But Evergreen just picks up a little bit weird. It ends up being a little bit patchy and gripping in weird places. So as much as I do love this color story, again, I love pinks, I love greens, I wish that this one had a little bit more of the essence of the mini retro palette. So that's my 2 cents. I won't beat a dead horse, which I actually hate that expression. So if you guys have a different expression for the same kind of sentiment, leave it down below and let me know what I can say instead of that. Next up, we do have my Yucca palette. And so this one came out this year, and this one I really do love this color story. This is absolutely beautiful. I have a little bit of trouble with Willow, with it actually going on pigmented and staying pigmented. And then the cream to powder in this one, yeah, this one's all right. It has a little bit more of a satin feel to it, so I didn't mind the cream to powder in this palette, but overall, I love this. This color story is just gorgeous. I think it is absolutely stunning. So this one I did enjoy, and I did meet my goal. And are we on to the last Natasha? Last Natasha Denona. This is the I Need a Nude palette. This one I did pick up in, I'm guessing September, and then I used the majority of the shades in October. So again, this is more of the cool toned kind of look that I go for over the Glam palette because we have a little bit more of a rosy peachiness to these shades. But every single one of these was beautiful. There's no cream to powder in here. Yeah, everything looks like it is the regular formula. There's a couple shimmers that are maybe a little bit more satin, so maybe a cream to powder with a satin kind of look to them. But overall, I loved this palette. I do kind of like some of this packaging too. I just feel like it is a little bit more elevated, a little bit more, like, again, it's a little bit more dimensional. It just feels a little bit more luxe, especially because now her palettes are $69. It just feels a little bit better compared to the regular shiny packaging. But that was all of my Natasha Denona palettes that I was able to run through. I have 2 more palettes to talk about, and so let's talk about the one that actually I ended up decluttering. This is the Pat McGrath Iconic Seduction, I believe is what it's called, but I did pick that up at a TJ Maxx for $15. That I talked about in my buys and buys, that is a purchase that I regret making because that quality was just not up to standard. Of course, the shimmers were beautiful, but the mattes, even though there is 3 tones of brown mattes in that palette, they all just blended out to nothing. Like, I felt like I couldn't build up any pigmentation. I couldn't build up that darkness that I wanted in the outer crease. And so this one I ended up decluttering. So I did declutter this to my niece for Christmas, and basically she's 10, and so, you know, she dabbles in makeup as far as like maybe putting a little bit of sparkle on, but I figured, you know, these are very neutral colors. It's not anything that basically is going to be, you know, clown makeup at 10 years old. And so I did go ahead and give this to her for Christmas for her to play with. And again, she's getting gifted a Pat McGrath palette that I actually saw no worth in. I feel like this is play makeup for a child. So if you also picked something up from this collection, which I wanted this palette when it was released, like I wanted to buy it at full price. I'm glad I didn't. But did anybody else pick up these palettes or pick them up even at TJ Maxx and be disappointed in the quality? Let me know if you had the same experience. All right, so this is palette number 24 for this quarter, and this is relatively new to me. Technically, I got this for Christmas as a gift, but of course, I actually, bless my husband and how he puts up with me, I took the palette out and I wrapped the box. So technically, I have the box for this wrapped underneath the tree, and when I open it, I will be so surprised and amazed and thankful, but I had to dip my fingers into it. Too Faced was doing a sale at the end of the year, so I did pick this up for a deep discount, which I had said in some buys and buys, or maybe one of my like new makeup releases that I did, which those just took so much time and they weren't getting a whole lot of views, and so I did cut those from kind of my routine and my repertoire. But definitely this was on my radar, this was on my wish list. This was on basically if it went on sale, I wanted to pick this up. And so this is the Too Faced Italian Spritz palette, and this is our color story on the inside. Absolutely gorgeous and stunning. I still feel like Too Faced has not done the type of quality since the Chocolate Gold palette. I wish we had that shimmer formula back instead of what the shimmer formula they've had in the past couple of years, but this is still great formula for Too Faced. The tin packaging, Too Faced, stick with the tin packaging, keep with this quality, give us stuff that's actually good and not crap. Okay, so on this one with my graphic, of course you guys will see that there's a couple shades missing. I am technically filming this on Christmas Eve, so I have a whole another week of wearing makeup for the end of the year. So the, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5 shades that I have left in this palette, they will get used up by the end of the year. This is my last palette that I have not been able to hit or touch or use every single eyeshadow, and that is basically because I've only had it for a week and a half. So I needed to get this video filmed, I needed to get it edited and scheduled, and so I did film a little bit early, but definitely the 5 shades are going to be used. I don't have a whole lot of thoughts on this yet. I do really enjoy the mattes. The look that I am wearing in my finale for Deck of Panning, I used this palette to get that look. A lot of you guys have been complimenting that look and loving it. I love a sunset eye with that pinky orange kind of gold. I love those types of looks, and so I was able to get that look with this palette. It is gorgeous. Everything blended out beautifully. Everything was pigmented, and just, this is the quality that we loved from Too Faced before they went downhill a little bit over the past couple years. So please, Too Faced, keep doing that. We love that. We don't love the other stuff. We love that. I forgot to show you guys some puppies. Oh, puppy yawns. As you guys can see, he is so big. So big. Oh, big boy. Yes, sirs. You are such a big boy. He does not like the lights. Eventually, I'm going to have to, like, just get some footage of him running around. But, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, baby. He's going to go play with his sister, but there is a puppy update for you. Oh, God, he's squirming. Now back to the regular programming. So that is my finale for No Pan Left Behind. For starting tracking in March and completely losing out on 2 months of tracking, the fact that I was able to use every single pan of eyeshadow in my collection is just amazing to me. Most of the looks that I ended up doing, I really enjoyed. I also really enjoyed the challenge of, if I only had, you know, like I did today, if I only had 4 shades left in a palette to use, I was able to put them together, get a cohesive look that I really enjoy. And so I felt like there was a challenge to this, which I absolutely loved that. It almost kind of felt like palette bingo when I got down to those last, you know, 4 or 5 shades. It felt like a palette bingo, and it really challenged me to come up with looks, do the right placements of the different shades. So I am extremely happy with the results for this project. I'm also equally happy about starting this again in the new year, and also being able to use all the pans on any new palettes that I have coming in. I do want to try some more indie brands. I'm very excited about what's going to be coming out in 2024. I have loved experimenting with more color. Of course, on the days that I work strictly from home and I don't have to see anybody, my colorful looks are just next level. But definitely there is a place for these more neutral palettes, because when I do go out and see clients, I do need to kind of tone it down a little bit. Even though, bless my clients, they are also enjoying some color on my eyes. I always get really good feedback from definitely the women that I go out and see. So definitely I am loving my collection. I don't think right now, looking at all of my eyeshadow palettes, there's nothing else that I would want to declutter. Everything I feel like has a purpose, has a really good color story that I enjoy. I've considered, you know, moving around some of my Natasha Denona shades into different palettes, but I don't know, there's a part of my brain that just doesn't like that idea. So maybe in the future, I just challenge myself to reach into multiple palettes at once. But I have thoroughly enjoyed rolling palettes into my deck of panning, and I think I'm going to continue to do that next year. Let me know down below if you liked that part of my deck of panning, me actually rolling in an extra prompt and using it for a palette for No Pan Left Behind and kind of getting the updates that way. Let me know if you enjoyed that versus me just doing quarterly updates on actually what I've been able to use and how I'm doing it with my tracking. You guys let me know what you want me to do, because I don't mind cutting that part of my deck of panning, but I also really enjoyed the challenge of having like 3 or 4 palettes rolled in and needing to use every shade within that month time. So I liked the pressure a little bit. So you guys tell me what you think. But otherwise, that's what I got for you guys. I hope that you guys were able to hit your goals on your challenges for your eyeshadow palettes this year. Let me know if you did a No Pan Left Behind, or if you are doing a No Pan Left Behind for next year. Like I said, it is a great way to actually test out your formulas and see if there's anything you need to let go or anything that you will hold on to with your cold dead hands. So let me know how you guys did this year. I think I'm putting this up on the 29th, so we only have a few more days of 2023. So I won't see you guys again until the new year. So I hope that you had a wonderful holiday season. I hope that you have a safe New Year's, and that if 2023 was hard on you, I hope that we have a better time in 2024, which, thank you so much for 1,000 subscribers. You guys did it. I hit it a couple days ago, and I know that there was so many of you encouraging in the comment section about me hitting 1,000 before the end of the year. So thank you to all of you for tuning in, for subscribing, for being positive towards me and positive towards each other in the comment section. You guys have made an amazing community here, and I just hope that we grow and that we can continue to reach the people that need this type of content, because I know I've heard so much from you guys about setting new goals for yourself in 2024, and we will all be here together to encourage and maybe some accountability, and also to celebrate our wins. So thank you to each and every one of you for getting me to this milestone, and also for creating a wonderful supportive community here on my channel. You guys did this. It is amazing, and I thank you. So with that, I will sign off for 2023. It has been an amazing year, and I thank all of you for the support. I have my water cup with my lipstick stained straw, so I will cheers to you guys, and here is to a wonderful, goal-hitting, supportive, beautiful eyeshadow look 2024. I hope that you guys have a beautiful day, and I will catch you in my next one.